Today I'm sitting down with Matty G. We're going to go through the recent auction mock draft. I think we did that on Monday or Tuesday. I strategically did not draft so that I could pick apart everyone else's picks. So we'll start with Matty G tonight. Let's go balls deep.
I'm the type to get shit done. You the type to observe. March Madness on my speakers, but today's November 23rd. Got something loud in the blunt, yeah. I don't say what I want, yeah. Probably somewhere sunny getting tan. Foreign women in the sun, yeah. That's all that I need. That's all that I need. That's all that I need. Got my brothers with me. Got my brothers with me, and my mama's healthy. That's all that I need.
Welcome to the Balls Deep podcast, brought to you by Fantasy Basketball International. I'm Adam King at Adam King 91 on Twitter. Find us at FBI Basketball or head to the website fbibasketball.com, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, everywhere and anywhere you consume us. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, rate. Everything helps. Matty G, here we are. We got there. We did. You took the long way via the hospital.
The hospital, yeah, there it is.
So, I mean, you've told me, but let's give our listeners and watchers.
You don't have to.
No, we can. It's a sporting injury, so you need to tell us what happened.
I really will, and I don't like it. Playing a Year 12 versus teachers game today, and one of the young bucks, he put an absolute heater on for about 2.5. We were playing in the small nets as well, so it wasn't even that he was taking a full shot on a full goal. But we were up 4-3, dying minutes of the game, and old mate just decided to let it absolutely bloody rip. I was the goalie. I just put my hands up. I didn't think. I didn't think. I thought just sacrificial lamb thoughts. Basically, I'm like, stop the ball. And I have there's actually a real word for it too. And of course there's a real word because it's a medical injury, but it is I had to get it right. Here we go. It's a distal radius fracture of my left wrist. Yep. So yeah, I'm currently strapped in a sling and just giving the wrist a bit of a break, mate.
All right. Well, at least you're here. You made it. We weren't delayed, so that's good. So we are going to talk about the auction draft, which I think was on Monday night, Tuesday morning, our time.
Yeah, I think it was Tuesday morning, our time.
It was a long one. So for anyone that hasn't done an auction draft, it's over 2 hours. You can speed it up. I sort of let it go for that long because I was breaking it down live with Noah, so I wanted to give myself time to talk about things. But it is, we typically don't do a lot of these because of the time commitment. So there's usually only 2 or 3 a year. I think Josh is potentially going to do one at some point. And then someone else might do one. I'm not sure. But was this your first auction ever, or you have done auction before?
I've done one. We did one last year. We did your friends and family auction, I believe.
Oh, yeah, we did. Yep.
So that was really good. I do a few auctions. I do like them, and I do like the strategy I think involved. I think the format of an auction mock draft is a lot better. Would you say it's a lot better, like tactically?
I think so. I think it allows for. I like it because it allows for punting a lot easier. I think with the way that we're going with the whole Wemby being sort of the number one player by so much, it evens the playing field pretty significantly, as we saw with the price that Wemby went for in this draft compared to sort of that next tier down, which we'll talk about in a minute. But we'll jump into it. We'll go through your team. Then we'll just go through the draft in general and talk about a few guys. I'm going to just do a quick drink update because hang on, I can see the camera. So I'm drinking chocolate and coffee rum liqueur. And it's from the Hoochery Distillery in Kununurra, where my wife was for work. So up far, the top of Western Australia, right over near the border. For anyone that's in Australia, it's about as far from Canberra as you can get. So she was up there. She went to the distillery up there, and this is what I told her to bring me back. So I'm drinking chocolate and coffee rum mixed with a bit of milk and some ice. And
you are a lucky man.
Very nice. Very good.
I haven't got anything. I'm completely. I'm sure. I've got nothing. So I'm just very jealous, and I wish my wife would go on a work holiday just so I could get that.
I'm still on holidays. I'll use that as my excuse that I'm still on holidays for 2 days. You've got another week, and then you're on holidays for a couple of weeks. So,
yeah, I've got a couple in the bag coming up really, really soon.
Right. Let's bring up this draft. So your team on the right, obviously. Now auctions. There's an order to nominating, but there's no order to pick. You pick a player when you want to pick a player. So in terms of the pick numbers, there is obviously no pattern here. It is interesting. I've gone through it and had a look at the teams. Like you can see where people have bid a lot of money and basically emptied their bank accounts. And then there's a massive gap between the fourth and fifth pick of 80 picks or something like that. So you sort of went somewhat balanced. It's probably a little bit heavy, but not super top heavy. So you didn't any of those like Jokic or Halliburton or any of those sort of distinct players.
You've got it there. And I think the best way of giving a comparison to that is shout out to our mate Dan Titus, who absolutely blew his wad in the beginning of this draft. Dan started just throwing money out, but he started winning, guys, and he couldn't stop. And then he sat there and he did nothing. So if you look at Dan's team, you'll see some like big splashes out there with Luka straight away. Giannis at 49, he thought was value. I actually was about to get in a bidding war with LeBron for 26 that I thought was great. Taking Baytown hero Stephen Curry. And then he picked up Mikal Bridges. And then you can see the bids that he got at the end there for these guys. Yeah. He didn't touch anything for about an hour and 20 minutes of this draft. So he went really top heavy because I think from memory, you can see the picks there that he's taken. 6, 12, 19, and 26 before he picks up again at 60. Yep. And then all of the back end was him picking up guys who were sitting around with one of the biggest value guys there being Mitch Robinson at $1 at the end. So if you look at that and you look at Josh Lloyd, he was just very balanced for a minute and then he got out of it and then he wrapped himself up probably just under 2 hours. He filled his squad, like an hour and a half, you'd say that he filled his squad and then he could leave it. So you can see that was balanced. And then if you go down to mine and the pick numbers that we put on the board, a couple of down, and this is how you, I think you have to attack a mock. You've got to, not a mock, an auction draft. You find the guys that you want to go. So Kawhi was bought up and put onto the board at $35. And I thought that was really good value for him. I'm not as out as a lot of other people are. I see him as about a $40 player. So picking him up for a few bucks there, for me, I was very okay with. Really similar for like LaMelo. I knew there was going to be a lot of interest on him. I probably paid a few dollars too much there. I picked 24 as my second pick. My third pick, Kyrie. Look, I'm happy with that. Like people are like, why are you paying $33 for Kyrie? I think he's around a $30 to $35 player. So he's right in that sweet spot. No disagreement from me there on him. Donovan Mitchell was the one guy I got in a bidding war for. And it all depends. I think his value peters out. I probably paid about $5-6 too much for him at the end of the day. Because if he's first round Donovan Mitchell, he's like $35, $36, $37. And I think you can get something. So I probably went a little bit too hard at Don, but I really wanted points because I wanted to insulate that as one of my last great point scorers. And you can see that Donovan wasn't put on the board here until 36. Comparatively, 10 picks later, Emmanuel quickly for half the price. 6 points less a game, maybe 7 points less.
Yep. Yeah, and I think, going through all those people, I think Kawhi is. That's what you've got to pay to get him because he's a top 8 player per game. A few of your guys like LaMelo, Kyrie, with the playoff schedule, which I know concerns a few people. So there's a little bit of risk with some of those picks, but in terms of their production relating to price, I think it's fine. LaMelo, maybe it's slightly. But I'm probably the wrong person to ask because I'm so high on LaMelo. So
me too. That's why I'm like, and this is the thing as well. Like, it's who are you drafting against and who loves LaMelo? And I think of most of us analysts sitting in there, I don't think anyone would have said, we don't want LaMelo on our team. And again, I've done the risky one. The only pick that I was really, I think, there was a couple that I was savaged at before LaMelo came out. I don't know who got Embiid. It was in the first 15 picks. Someone rolled him out there.
It was. I think he might have even gone second.
He was out
did.
there really cheap for $41, and I was looking at that, going like, "Oh, geez." And I just missed my window because he almost went off the board. Funnily enough, he almost went off the board, and then some more money got splashed on him at the very end. So he almost went off at like $28, and I thought that was ridiculous. Like there was the clock runs down, like ding, ding, and someone's just splashed it. I was like, "What are we doing here? Like, are we going to let him go for $28?" I think Dan Titus or someone bid on him, and then someone's eked in that extra value. And he got up to there, but that was the one pick around 41 that I could see being a really nice, like top 5 pick for the value. And yeah, he went out off the board second for $41.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and then Halliburton. I know Josh. I listened into Josh's show afterwards, and he rued missing Halliburton on more than one occasion. He brought it up $42 for Halliburton. Feels like a steal given what sort of some of these other guys in that range went for. Like we had, as you said, Giannis there went for 49.
Yep. Shea 65.
Yeah, Shea 65. A lot of those guys went for sort of in the 50s, 55, 60. So
that's where I drew my. So there's where I drew my line as well. I got to listen to Josh's and his takes on it because I haven't, like literally after this one, I was being flat out this week and I haven't again. But this is my thing. When I saw those values going off, I thought about, and I think what a good strategy is for those who don't do a lot of auctions, look at what other first round guys are going for and know if that's value or not to judge the guys that you're going to have to splash the cash on. So I saw Halliburton for like the $42 or $46, whatever it was. And I was like, okay, so a first round guard, he's very elite, mind you, in assists. So if you're going to buy assist, you're buying those off the board very hard. But your other elite first round guys, they're going to go for, if that was cheap, 40 is going to be my limit on one of those guys. And that's where I thought that, okay, well, I got Kawhi, LaMelo, Kyrie flirts with it, all for that good value. And then I kind of routed a little bit of that value that I got from Kyrie into Donovan and went over that $40 limit. I thought one of the steals that I got there was, I really think picking up Al Horford for $3 was just a pick 90. I thought that was a really solid pick there because quickly at 46, and then I just sat back and I watched where it went. And then I'm picking up guys. The only slip up was, there was a slip up, Jaden Ivey. I think one of the guys there, I got distracted with the and I had a guy, I was just adding dudes into my queue.
Yep.
Or who was it? It was, I can't remember who it was. I wanted it to be rolled back. I was like, can you do this? I was like, oh, Jesus, what have I done? But then I saw it. I was like, yeah, it kind of works in the end of it. And then I just splashed some money throughout. The thing is this at the end, and where you can see guys like Kelly Olynyk going for $1 and these guys, there was a bunch of dudes in this draft. I think it was Yard. Was it Yardy?
Yardship.
Yardship and D-Mac had a bunch of cash left at the end. So too did, I think it was it Roto Kyle? Had a little bit of cash left at the end.
Yeah. So
there was like 3 dudes at the end. I was like the 4th or 5th pot holder at the end. And then there were some guys. So you've got to watch your values and compare to everyone else as well, and who's on the board. Like how much has everyone else got left? Put yourself in a position to have more cash for guys who you want. And like Darius Garland, wherever his price is, you'll notice that Garland has, like if you look at the picks by dollar value, you can see like average, mid.
Yep.
And then there was just people who haven't got assists, and everyone was throwing money at them at the end. And so they were just, that's where those prices really get inflated. You can even see here, like DMAC, NBA Fantasy Bible. You can see his last picks there. You can see it's 3, 4, 3, 3, 3, which is kind of uncommon in a lot of auction drafts. You can see the last picks, Kingy, what, $1, $2?
Yeah. A lot of these ones here are, Titus is probably a perfect example because he blew all his money early. But yeah, a lot of people do have a 2 or 3, $1 or $2 picks late. They don't have that flexibility to be able to do 3s and 5s. Whereas, you were sort of a bit of a mix. You had a bit of a mixture there, but obviously Eric here, he had 11, 6, 3, 6, 4, 4. So he had a lot of money left. And that's the Wemby effect, I think, which is sort of a new element to auction drafts that we haven't seen before.
Because
so
he
I
spent
talked
half
about,
his salary. Let's be clear. He almost spent half of his salary on Victor Wembanyama. And people were bidding for him across the board. Josh Lloyd. And it was almost a game as well. Like, I knew that I didn't want him, but I think I splashed a couple of bids on him just to up it a little bit. Like, you could say his value, and I just brought it up on RotoWire as well. His current value is around $61 on ESPN auction drafts. This was on Fantrax, still the same rules, but the most that anyone pays according to their ESPN average is $64, and that's for Jokic.
Yeah.
So to see him go in an analyst draft at $30, there was some guys really wanting to dig in and be like, yeah, I'm back in Wemby this year, and I'm going to pay for him.
Yeah, they are. And I think I referred a lot when I was breaking this down. I referred back to my tiers a lot rather than ranks specifically. So I had my first tier, my second tier. My first tier is Wemby and Jokic, and I think what we've seen, if we just think back to last year, we had Jokic, Shea, Halliburton was probably in there, Luka. So there were a few guys who were sort of in that top tier, who were all going for 65 to 70. Like Jokic was probably going at 70, and then Luka 65, and Shea 65. They've stayed there, but Wemby has sort of pulled Jokic with him into that top tier because so many analysts are talking about who is number one. Is it Wemby or Jokic? So they've become a pretty clear top tier, and so Wemby is going stupidly high, as we saw here with $92, and he's pulled Jokic up, which means that those guys at like Luka and Shea, who went for, I want to say they went for like 65. Yeah, Shea went for 65.
I know Shea went for 65, and Luka was with Dan Titus at 65 too, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and I have Anthony Davis in that tier as well, and he went for 60. So that's my second tier, and then my third tier is Halliburton, Giannis, Tatum, and Embiid. And we saw like Giannis went for 49. Tatum, what did Tatum go for?
Was it 40?
41.
41, yeah.
41. Halliburton went for 42. Embiid went for 41 or whatever we were talking about. So we're seeing a pretty significant gap from that top tier to the second tier, and then the second tier to the third tier. And I mean, obviously it's a very small sample size because we don't have a lot of auction draft data, but it has been curious from what I've seen. I have seen a couple of other auction results, which people have sent me and asked me to have a look at their team, and seeing something similar where there's sort of a gap now where there hasn't been in previous years. And so I think while you said you slightly overpaid for LaMelo, maybe he's more of a $35 player, I think quickly you probably got at a bit of a discount. He's probably a $25 player. And then, as you said, Horford for $3, Kuminga for $7. I think he's a pretty good deal. Cam Johnson could be really nice.
Yeah, I like my Zubac. I needed a center, and this is the thing. I probably could have got Zubac for cheaper, to be fair. And so this is where, again, like you need to be able to strike. I think tactically, one of the best things I can suggest for punters out there is you've got to strike early and mid and middle. You don't want to be around with one of the guys with their wallets open, counting their pennies at the end of your draft, because that's where Zubac, and also be conscious of how many centers, etc., like that you have, because Big Zoo, I'm high on. He's one of the guys that I love this year, and I say it wherever I can. Big fan of Zubac. He's probably you could call him about a $15 guy. Now, in this draft, I was actually looking at getting him for even cheaper than $9. So I would actually argue Zoo is around 15. Let me look at the roto. Actually, let me go by team, and I'll go down and see where he's at there. His average over at ESPN real quickly. Los Angeles Clippers. Clippers, here we go. Bones Highland, don't want to do him. Here we go. No bids, apparently, on ESPN currently. So no one's putting a bid on their tracker for 24-25 of Zubac. Going back to last year in his bids and their data, I'd be very curious because I see him as higher value this year than I did last year on Zoo.
Yeah, I think so. I know Basketball Monster has him as a $14 player, and this is only based on projections, obviously, but Basketball Monster has him in that, looking at the centers who are in that range, has him in that sort of ballpark with Vooch, Jalen Duren, Derek Lively, Jakob Pertl, all in that sort of $15 range. And we saw, I'm pretty sure we saw Gobert went for 11, so that was pretty cheap.
He was cheap.
And then Duran went for about 15, and I think Mark Williams went for something similar. Jarrett Allen was similar. So there's that bucket of centers, and Zubats is in that discussion. He's not as flashy. Like he doesn't get the 1.8 blocks or the 15 rebounds. But as you said, they're in this year. I think if we compare it to last year, he has no competition for minutes. He has Mo Bamba. So
Mo Bamba. Shout out to Mo Bamba.
It's going to be Zubats will be he'll be 15 and 11, 14 and 11 with a block, a couple of assists. He doesn't hurt your free throws. He's very efficient. So he's going to be one of those very unsexy but solid centers this year.
Yeah, and I love that for him as well. And I think this is where I started looking for guys. Now, if you see Lopez, I guess in Rotomancer's team right beside me, there was guys who were filling up the center position because, like you said earlier, when you do this, you don't just draft pick one. Won't necessarily take pick one. Like they might throw Wemby out there to see what he's going to get, but you have no intention of taking Wemby. You just want to clear some cash out. So your strategy might be to get guys to empty their wallets, but have a very focused build in mind and target those guys as you see fit. Because you can roll one of those guys out there after the second, third time you come back around and pick 24 and 25. However, you obviously you're throwing those guys out there, alternate at top to end in an auction draft. But this is the thing here. Lopez, he went off the board at pick 113 to give you where I had Zubac at. So Lopez got thrown out there at 113. He's gone for 6. So a few more picks go later. And this is where people were starting to throw around and the names on the board all start to get around. You can see actually on my team that I had, there you go.
I've got the pick order. Yeah.
Scrolling. There you go. Lopez, Gary Trent, who I wanted. And for $1, I didn't want to get into a bidding war, but I really liked Gary Trent there for $1. I thought that was a cheapy steal by Adam. Keontae for 4. People love that, getting the last of the points off the board. And this is where I was like, who are my potential 20-point scorers? I probably need another point guard. Keontae is going to be in there, but I really wanted to start filling that forward spot again because I've had some good depth. And I thought about my point guards. I was like, I'm okay here. So for Kuminga, for the last of the 20-point scorers, I've kind of just rolled in those picks back for 2 guys who I wanted to throw out there on the heap because I had that because I was at pick 12. So I had the right of putting these guys out here. But there was the last of the centers start to go off around here. You can see guys starting to get upside flirty with Roto Kyle around 109 with Noah Clowney, Arman Thompson. The guy who I had in my queue, that was the other dude, man. It was Papi freaking Roy. Papi Roy this was his first ever auction draft. So he was just scared that his mama was going to get him in trouble for spending his pocket money. And so if you were to see how much money my dude had left, Papi was playing it real chill. So when it came to these late round guys that people might really want to get their hands on, like Trey Murphy, because look at the picks, go back a few more before Trey, you can see the dollar value. There's a little bit of disinterest going on for the bidders. Yeah. There's not even a double figures guy here for how long?
No, for quite a while. For what was that, 94 to 111. So almost 20 picks.
There's no one splashing double digits. Zach LaVine was the last one before then, and then Jabari Smith Jr. and Bradley Beal there at 12, which I like by Josh. But that's what I'm saying. You can see there's a little bit of let's get some specialists. Caruso for 4, I thought was bloody insane. I wanted that, and I missed him in the auction. I didn't get a chance to. I missed that. I was like, he's gone, bastard. And then yard shit picking up RJ Barrett for $4. Really nice. But this is where Rotomancer, he had a bunch of cash to drop. So he's just gone out there and dropped $4 for Colin Sexton. Good value. Herbie Jones, $4. Sick. And then if you keep on going back down, you'll see that that's when the specialists start to go off the centers. So Kessler's gone off the board there at $8. So I thought to get comparatively Zubac for the 9, it was pretty spot on. Yeah. And then that's where Papi Roy starts throwing out that $19 for, and I just couldn't compete with that. I couldn't compete with $19 at this point of the draft. But yeah, you've got to go hard. But I think I waited to pick 20 something for my pick 20 to really start thinking, okay, what's everyone else got? Oh, Kawhi's being put out there, $35. Okay, I can sweep in and take him. And then I was looking for $40 above guys, as I said, and trying to take those off. And especially after knowing how much someone paid for Victor Wembanyama, I was like, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think that's the pattern. I mean, we see that in years gone by as well, that money goes off the board early. So we see these big names go off. The flashy sort of players, like they might not be a $60 player, but someone that's got a lot of hype or breakout potential, they tend to go early. So, I mean, if you just look at the pattern here, I suppose you can see a lot of big bidding early, and it starts to slow down. The mid-range guys go in here, sort of the $30 guys, $35 guys. And then, as we said, once you get, and then again, dropping off. And then once you get to sort of pick 90, as we saw, there's a lot of value there. So if, depending on what your strategy is, and it's whether you're going hard like Dan Titus did and Raf did the same thing, I think, or whether you're going balanced, like sort of like you did and like Josh did, it's with an auction draft. I think if you haven't done one before, I would strongly recommend trying to do a mock before you do 100%. A real draft, because it's in a snake draft, you can switch off depending on where you're drafting, but you could switch off for 5 minutes. You can sort of not pay too much attention. In an auction draft, you can't. You can miss, like Josh did. He was talking, he missed Halliburton. So you really can't go to sleep, and you need to look at patterns and look at, as you've said, how much money do people have.
I had to take a call that I actually had to take, and I was like, and then I missed a dude. I was like, and I could have bought him, and then I had to try and think, who else is going to give me that? I ended up having to pay more for a similar guy. So there was like, even $6 can actually mean a bit of a lot as well. And if you go back up to the top, this is the funny thing to show how locked in you need to be for one of these bad boys. So you can see that it's kicked off. There's the exact time. There is 9:01 a.m. Now scroll all the way down to the end. I'm sure it was a 2.5 hour draft.
It was close.
It was
11, 2 hours 20.
2 hours and 20 minutes. Like, it was a long way to go.
It is.
So this is where as well, I think one of the hacks is I think a couple of people, like, if you go back up as well, guys like Alex Sarr in an auction draft and Zach Edey. This is where, guys, you can get a lot of rookies with potential and upside late for cheap, because people are very much spending their money on the guys earlier on. So if you see there's guys like Shaden Sharp for $3. For $3, go nuts. Give it a crack. I got to get my guy PJ Washington. I'm sure someone just saw me put it out there for $1, and I just had to take him. So he's my boy. Denny Advia, $3. Great pick. Edie, $2. Give it a crack. Why not? Trace Jackson Davis at $3. Merry bloody Christmas. You know what I mean? So, and this is the thing as well. When you get to the end, you've got 2 or 3 picks left. You really need to focus in on what you need to get. So it's not even about getting your guys anymore. It's like literally see a need. It's like watching robots from DreamWorks. Like see a need, fill a need. Yeah. Because that's what you're going to have to do at the end of your auction drafts.
You do. And as I said, a lot of value. You can get a lot of specialists late. So if you can bolster those sort of points, your percentages early, then you can target guys late who are going to get you steals or threes. They're really only going to help you in 1, maybe 2 categories. But like a Tyus Jones, steals and assists for $4. Great.
Huge.
Huge. And these, like Alex Sarr, as you said, Zach Edey, blocks. Clint Capella blocks. You got Cameron Johnson, who could be points and threes. We don't
points,
know
threes, and a few rebounds. That's all he does. He doesn't, and he kept my free throw percentage high. I actually had a really pretty decent field goal percentage team for most part. I managed to really buoy that a lot, even with taking guys like Quickly. I managed to really get a team with a really decent or competitive field goal percentage, but a really good free throw percentage as well. So was happy with that, kept him in line. And I also did that by volume. So I was making sure that if I was trying to offset that, I was picking up high volume free throw shooters to buoy that for me. If I took a guy who might miss a couple here and there, I'm like, you don't get to the line much. So I can work around that a little bit easier.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring up, so here is the, let me just change. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to share a different screen.
Ooh, multi-share.
Yeah.
Lilu, multi-pass.
Which one? This one we want. Now it's a bit small, but let's zoom it in somehow. I'm sure I can zoom this in somehow.
Oh, this is down the bottom right corner, Kingy. I feel like it's a yeah.
All right. So this is the results sorted by price. So this is where you can look at who was expensive, who wasn't, and those tiers that I talked about. So top tier, second tier, third tier, and Donovan Mitchell sort of is borderline there, as is LaMelo. This is where it starts to blur a little bit.
This is the blurry area, 100%.
Yeah. But I mean, any names for you that jump out? I know someone when we were doing the draft, someone that I thought was great value was only because Noah got him was Sabonis for 27. I thought that I would have him up in this range with Chet.
I would have him in the 30, 35s.
Yeah.
I actually would prefer him over Chet. That might sound like a really hot take to some, but if you think about what you're getting from Sabonis, what do you? I mean, Chet might make some more threes, but you can get threes really cheap on any waiver wire. And the blocks, he gets you a lot of blocks. But Sabonis is a walking almost triple-double machine. And if you can get a triple-double, like if you're getting counting stats, if you're getting like 16 points a game, 12 rebounds, and 11 assists in your bag, I'll take that any day of the week. His percentages, not bad either. Like, so he's not going to really hurt you in a massive amount of areas. He's got a better field goal percentage than Chet. So if you see that price there, what was it? What's Chet? $36. Was it? No, that's pick 36, $38.
No, that's $36. Yeah, 36. Yeah. So
$10 less for Sabonis is a steal.
Yeah, I thought so. I think I said it on the show. I was really surprised he got Sabonis at 27 because he's typically going in the 15 range in snake drafts.
He is. And on ESPN, on their current tracker, I swear I saw that, Sabonis is going at $48.
Yeah.
So ESPN average is $48.96. I don't know how they do it in cents, but...
Yeah, so very good value there. Then we're into the 25s. These are your top 40 kind of guys. Cat, Bam, Jalen Johnson. I know Josh took Paolo for 22, which he thought was potentially too much by $2 or so. But
did he realize that you weren't in this? Did he realize that you weren't in this draft, and then it was Adam from Elite Fantasy Basketball that he was taking?
Maybe.
Okay.
Who knows? But yes,
I saw him take that. I thought he was throwing his middle finger up and be like, "Cop this, Kingy, you're not getting it this time." I actually was clapping and laughing my head off when Josh did that.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised he took him, but I'm okay with it there. And then if we keep scrolling, you got quickly, as I said, for 20. I think that's really good value because I think you're sort of into the top 50, like Franz, DeRozan, Vassell. Zion, these guys are all in that $20 range, but I think of all of them, quickly potentially has the most upside. Zion, I guess you could argue, has a ton of upside, but
I think so too.
DeRozan, Siakam, Jimmy Butler to some degree, Jaylen Brown, Franz. I feel like their ceiling is top 50. They're really not going to be much better than that. Where I think quickly,
I would agree.
He's still a bit of an unknown. We don't know what he's going to do this year.
Yeah, and that's where I was like, I took the gamble. I just had a look at it, and I just straight up had to say, this is what I want. This is who I need. And look, I like the potential of Quickly. He's a bit of a darling of mine. I think, when you do it, this is personal bias. I had Quickly in my team last year because I loved what he did at the tail end of 22, 23 with the Knicks. I love what he was putting together, a really great source of points, really great source of threes, getting some steals for me, really helping my free throw percentage on volume. And I like that a lot. So I actually had picked him up early in the season, and I had him as like my kind of like my heat check guy, like my Malik Monk, if you will, that I didn't want to let go. And so when he went to Toronto, I was like, I actually dropped off. I actually got best of both worlds because in that whole trade and when everything happened last year, I picked up Dante DiVincenzo in that position in New York, and I had Quickly already in my team to see where it went. And then both of them just shone for me, like out of nowhere. And this was on a team where I had drafted Ja Morant at like 100 and something, like maybe like 98, and I had benched him in a league where there was no IR spot. And I was like, great. Jar's back. This is like, I'm going to be good. And then I was struggling to make it. And I missed out on playoffs by one game because you can't see a 9-game season from Jar coming after that.
No.
So quickly ended up becoming like my starting, like my point guard who was like just doing work for me. If he's capable of doing what he did last year with a bit more, we're looking at a top 45 guy in fantasy.
Yep.
And I think that's his, I mean, I don't even think that's his ceiling. Maybe like 35, 45 potentially if we're really like on the hype train for him. I think that's where we could see him. And I've seen his projections all around 40 on most sites. I think mine is 37 on our latest insight, like on the big boards that we've just done. I think it's 37 is my latest on him. So I'm quite comfortable with it at the end of the day. But you've got to pay for these guys because he could be a 30-point scorer a night.
Yeah.
Not every night. Not every night.
No, not every night. No. Toronto have got. I mean, they've got other guys there now. They've got Barnes and they've got Barrett. So there'll be a little bit of inconsistency, but he's got some assists upside as well.
He does,
which we haven't really seen a lot of. He hasn't had that opportunity to be the primary ball handler, and Scotty Barnes obviously does a lot of that as well. But so he doesn't have 9 assist upside, but 5 to 6 absolutely. And funny,
absolutely.
I've got him in my rankings. I've got him at 37. So there you go.
Oh, you do? There we go. We're in bar. Yeah.
So
he's in my last pass. He was 37. I moved him up to.
Yeah, I've got him in with Desmond Bain, Jalen Williams, Jalen Johnson, Cade Cunningham, DeJounte. So quite a lot of guards in that tier that I've got with Derek White at the back end.
Can you sort that list then? This is actually an interesting exercise on that. Can you sort that list by team really for me for just a second and then go up to ATL at the top?
Sort of.
You probably won't. Maybe can you go by team? Can you do you should be able to.
I'll expand the selection. Yep.
There you go. So Jalen Johnson, you can see they went for $24 and pick 37. And if you go down and then if you go down and look at Jalen Williams, because we keep on talking about comparative value for the two Jalens.
Yep.
Because there's
see there.
Yeah, he went at pick 47 for 23. So this again was more inside that. There seems to be a bit of a swing in favor of the upside of Jalen Johnson now that you mentioned those similar guys. There seems to be a bit of a swing towards Jalen Johnson in Atlanta over Jalen Williams, where if you get either one of them, you'd be laughing. But now there's a situation presenting where you could get both of them on the team because I'm seeing Jalen Johnson go in the end of the 3rd round. Kingy, I think we've been in a couple of drafts where we've seen him go off the table about 35, 36.
Yeah.
And then Jalen Williams is still back on the board in the 40s.
Yeah, and I'd actually, I mean, I'm really high on Jalen Johnson, but I'd actually prefer Jalen Williams. I think I know Johnson's got more of the hype, and I think people still look back at last year and remember Jalen Williams' start to the season, which was pretty average. He wasn't great. It was the last 2 months, 6 weeks where he really turned it on. Whereas people remember Jalen Johnson as he started fantastic. He got injured at the back end of the season, but they remember that his trajectory was so good, and then they've got rid of DeJounte, and there's all this opportunity for him. And OKC
he dunked his. They've added Hartenstein and Caruso.
And Caruso. So people are like, I'm just not sure where Jalen Williams fits there. But I think I'd actually prefer Jalen Williams. But as you said, he is in some drafts he's going about a round later than Jalen Johnson.
And I think everyone loves the fancy side that Jalen dunked his Johnsons on Austin Reeves' face as well. I think that was probably what some of his happy upside.
I think so. But as you saw here, they basically went for the same price in this draft, 24 and 23. So
this was the good litmus test to see. Like at the end of the day, there is a feel in analyst world that they are very balanced, and if you can get either one of them for similar value in your drafts, whether it be auction or in normal drafts, like just normal snake, turn for turn drafts, it's about similar value.
And here's this as I said, this bulk sort of little
centers,
grouping of centers in that $15 range. Miles Turner, Jalen Duren, Mark Williams, Jarrett Allen, Isaiah Hartenstein, and so they all went pretty similar in the $15 range. But then
there you go. There's my backup plan. My backup plan to Hartenstein was Zubac, and I missed out on Hardy. So I picked up Zubac for $6 cheaper. Sick.
You did. And Aiton, I mean, he went.
He went for $10.
I hate Aiton, but for $10, good deal. Gobert for 11, good deal.
Giddy for 11, I thought was a good deal too. I thought Giddy for 11 was a decent deal for Kyle. I like that for him.
Yep. Yeah, there's value down here. I mean, Claxton for $10, I'd have him in that discussion with Duran and Mark Williams as well.
100%.
And then, as you said, down into Zubats, Vooch, Dan Gafferty is probably a little bit below them as is Kessler. So that's probably about right. But certainly a lot of value down here. And you'll see 100%. A lot of these picks were in the hundreds and the 80s and that sort of thing. So,
especially when you see Keegan Murray go off the board at pick 33, people just wanted to test his value out there and see what the thoughts were. See, that's what you see again, like out of about this dollar value. It's an interesting exercise to have a look at who's the lowest pick around the similar values. Because this is people throwing guys out there in draft to be like, hey, I wonder if someone would be keen on this guy or someone values them higher than somebody else. So you throw a Keegan Murray out there. At this point in the draft, you see where he goes just to get some cash off the board because you don't
CJ
want him.
was one of those. So CJ went for $10, but he went pretty early. And Josh, I don't know if Josh nominated him or I know he talked about the CJ pick and just gauging where the market was at on someone like a CJ because you sort of liken him to like a Bradley Beal or something like that.
100%. So this is where you just see where they're thrown out there and where they go. If you scroll back up as well, there was another interesting, just above Jalen Suggs, a few above Jalen, there was a number that keep going up. There we go. So you can see in there, people start to get a bit saucy and consistent. Where was it? Oh, bloody hell. Go up, there you go. Pick 111, Trey Murphy. That was the one again that caught my eye. Yep. So you can see there, this is where that value goes off the deep end. And then he's still sitting around in drafts at the 111th. He's almost like, I won't say he's a darling, but he's someone that we're all very conscious of his role in New Orleans this year. Yeah. So everyone's like not want to buy. He's like one of the best players left on the board. Let's not throw him out there. Let's see who can save money. There was I think there was a few tactics at play for Trey, to be fair. Like probably a few too many tactics for Trey Murphy.
I think people probably, as you said, they left him alone and didn't nominate him because they thought, oh, maybe I can get him for value later. Yep. He's a bit of a sleeper. Maybe I can get him. Yes. But by the time he was actually nominated, we had those guys who had a whole heap of money left to spend, and there was a bidding war for him. Whereas if
Papi Roy, who had only had, I think, 2 or 3 picks, got him for 19. Yeah. But look at the guys underneath that at 64, 59. We're talking Derek White, 17, cheaper, who arguably probably a better fantasy player this season.
Oh, at this point, definitely, yeah, I think. And so if Trey Murphy had been nominated in the 60s or the 70s, he probably would have gone for cheaper, I think. I think you would have actually got him at value earlier in a draft rather than later. So, yeah,
100%.
A lot of tactics, a lot of strategies in an auction draft. So, like I said, try and do a mock if you can.
Yeah, if you can.
Because it's 2 hours of sort of intense focus and really sticking to your game plan. Like I know when I go for my home league, we do an auction draft and we do it live. So we do it all in the same room at the same time. And so it takes us about 3 hours or 4 hours because we do the first 3 rounds, then we have a couple of beers, then we do the next 3 rounds. And so I go in with, anyone that follows me knows that I punt. So I go in with a punt strategy and I can actually, unlike a snake draft, I can actually go in with a list of names, priority. This is what I value this guy at. This is what I value this guy at. If I miss this guy, this is who I target. So if I'm punting big man stats, I want Trey Young, but if I miss him, then I'm going to target Donovan Mitchell. And this is because I'm targeting their stats. He's a $38 player, but I'm happy to go to 43.
I remember that one last year for you. I remember that friends and family auction draft. And I had just finished doing a production last year. I just finished directing a show at school. Do you remember this? And there was like an after party. So I literally started off. This is how long it went for last year. Like you said, 3 hours. I finished the show. The draft had just started as we were bumping out. I stepped to the side. I started watching it. I was trying to lock in. I went to the after party. I literally went in there for 10 minutes, 3 or 4 picks that I didn't have my eye on. I've got out. I think we finished at like 11 something o'clock at night by the time I'd driven home and paid attention to it because it was so late and I didn't want to miss it. You know, I made playoffs in that league. It was a really fun draft. It was like a 3-hour session. Like you've really got to give yourself the time for an auction draft because it's intense.
Yeah, I don't know if we're doing it again this year. I have to check with B-Dub actually, and I guess talk to the people that were in it and see if they're keen to do it.
Sausage sizzle Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, well, we should.
Even just a draft show, just a live draft for it would be fun.
Well, we should even try and organise like an Aussie auction where we just have Aussie analysts and like even if there's only 10 of us and we obviously can't be in the same space at the same time, but we could all get on a call together and
we could
and do it. What is actually really fun but it takes a lot of work by the commissioner or whoever is running it is to do an offline auction where you actually bid, like where you actually sit and you hold up a number and like $5.
Yes.
But it takes, we've done it once and there was a lot of drinking. So some of the bids got a bit out of control.
Do I say challenge accepted?
I
would love to know.
It's fun.
It's a lot of fun.
A full day thing. Like it takes.
It is.
Because, each pick takes 5-7 minutes. And 100 picks, that's like 500 minutes. You're looking at 6-7 hours. So it's it's a lot of work, but it is a lot of fun if you can pull it off. It
is. It's a lot of fun. And this draft as well, despite it being a 2.5 hour sweat fest. And to be fair, it really is a sweat fest, and people need to be very aware of what it is. Because this is absolutely nothing short of your fullest time and pursuit. And so when you go into an auction draft, I think one of the big lessons we can take here is do not go into one of these drafts, even in the slightest, ever thinking this is like a usual kind of kettle of fish. It's not. It's not even fish. It's a completely different thing. And I think your preparation is easy to do. By way of ascertaining values from places like Roto, who has like ESPN values, or doing a couple of mocks. But it really is the old school pen to paper, like you said, writing down a value, writing down a strategy. Like this isn't just flying by the seat of your pants going like, I like this guy. Know your limits, know your budgets, write them down, put the notes pen to paper, and then go from there and see where you go.
Yeah, I go in, everything's handwritten for me when I go into my auction draft because it's just easier to change things on the fly. And one downside to either being an analyst or to drafting with people, mates, things like that, they know the players you like, and so they will bid you up. I remember last year I really wanted Devin Vassell, and everyone in the draft knew that I wanted Devin Vassell, and I ended up paying about $8 too much to get him, because they just kept bidding me up. And I was in the room with them and they were telling me, we're just going to bid you up because we know you want him. Like, what can I do?
Is this my time to admit to a little bit of open collusion on the day?
No.
I will. I literally called D-Mac to be like, hey, D-Mac, do not dare take Zubac from me, you bastard. I called him up and said, I know you want to say, because we were two of the only 3 guys back with the center. And I'm like, who do you want? I want Zoo. I was on your show. I told you that I wanted Zoo. You know that I know that. Don't you dare be a bastard. Who do you not want me to be a prick to you for? And I won't be that guy. I will happily just let you get whoever you want, because we were just laughing. We were just laughing our asses off at each other, like, because he was in Perth and he had just taken his dog to the vet, dropped his dog to the kennel because they were off to Bali. He'd gone into the work for the morning, and it was hilarious. But this is the kind of thing, because that's what I thought Josh Lloyd was doing to you. When I saw Josh throwing out money on Paolo Banchero and Adam Adam was popping it up, I actually thought it was you for a second before I saw it was other Adam.
Yep.
And so I just thought he was messing with your head. And I was like, good on him. Josh is completely going to take you for all you're worth.
Absolutely. It's one of the strategies of an auction is knowing your opposition, knowing who you're drafting against, and bidding them up and trying to get money off the board. And then, as you said, it's also about when we're doing our draft here in person, you collude, you pull someone aside and go, I really want this guy, but I know you sort of need someone. So it's little partnerships on the side. Everything's on the table. So there's
it's like Survivor. It's like Survivor for fantasy.
Yeah, it is. It is. So Anyway, I've kept you long enough. I'm going to go and watch the footy. What's coming up on Insight?
Big drop, or maybe get it at our Patreon link. Hit us up on X, whatever you want. Follow that one. The big drop, or the new edition of that, drops a month out from the season. Our latest rankings across all 4 analysts. We're dropping tomorrow. I don't know when this one's dropping, but our offensive specialists and our defensive specialists have just come out. We've got mocks all the way to the first 14 picks, and a super huge episode coming with those of you who listen here who are in Australia for the Ball Page. It's an ESPN league. It's run by Carl up in Toowoomba area, like just Brisbane way, wherever he goes, he's well up there. He runs leagues all over the country, from A Champions League all the way to Z League. They're like 20-man teams. We're doing a big 20-man live mock draft Sunday session very soon. So a 20-man mock on ESPN or Fantrax or somewhere, we'll give it a crack. So that's coming up for all the Australian fans out there to support his work in the page. And we just got almost pretty much like 5 or 6 shows a week coming out in the lead up to the fantasy season, mate.
Yep, plenty of content now. Everyone's starting to ramp up. We're only 2 weeks from the preseason, and then 3 weeks till the start of the regular season. So we'll start getting some ideas about rotations and playing time and who's starting, who's not, very soon, which will be good. I did all my promo at the top of the show, so I don't have to do it now. So go and find us, go and like us, all of that stuff. Matty, thanks for jumping on despite the injury. You're a trooper, pulling through for the fantasy basketball community.
I love being here. Love FBI and the balls deep stuff and you boys, and always here for you, Kingy.
No worries. Thank you, mate. I will be back. I don't know what my next show is, but yeah, plenty coming out. My weekly show will start probably in the next 2 weeks, I think. So I'll be doing a show every day. Until then, catch up.
Bye.
You just listened to another episode from the Fantasy Basketball International Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us. And for more information about joining our community, please check out our website at fbibasketball.com.